All right, we are live. This is episode 62 of the Deconstruction Podcast, brought to you by Jobtable, the simplest way to grow and manage your construction business. As always, we're going to kick it off with one of our latest reviews here. This is coming from Benjamin Bates, Contractor. So I switched to Jobtable from Jobber, and I'm extremely happy. The cost is significantly lower, and the value of the product is way higher. So quick and easy review there. Thank you, Benjamin, for that.
Thank you, Benjamin. That's a good one.
Yeah. Well, we got a special guest today. So this guest who has literally built things his entire life, from serving as an Army engineer, graduating from West Point, to running facilities and construction for massive corporate brands, and now doing it his way as the owner of ASW Solutions in Tennessee. He's a veteran, an engineer, a problem solver, and a small business owner who gets it. He knows what it's like to be in the trenches, whether it's on a job site or on the boardroom. Please welcome Preston to the show.
Hey, Preston.
Thank you, Costa.
So I see you're on the job site working hard. How fitting. If you don't mind, Preston, if you want to take a couple minutes, you have quite the background. If you don't mind just introducing yourself and what you're up to today.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Yeah, I've had a lot of fun building for others for a long time, and when I was 52 years old, I decided what I wanted to do when I grew up, and started my own business in late 23. One of the more fun types of projects I did was commercial remodeling back in my past. So I built the business with the intent of doing commercial remodeling like the one I'm in right now. In my first 2 years, I spent most of my time doing residential work, which was never my intent. But over 2 years, I built up about 257 residential clients. And they're the ones who paid the bills for the first 2 years, and I'm really grateful for them. And I don't say no to them, but I'm slowing down the residential work because my commercial business is finally picking up. So having a lot of fun doing it, and the software tools, the Jobtable has allowed me to build out this entire. I built this out as a 12-week project. It's actually going to be done in about 8 weeks and 3 days. And I built the entire job out with all the trades, all the cost tracking, entirely in Jobtable. It was my first attempt at dipping my toe in the water with Jobtable. And I had used a different platform for about 2 years. And I really like the features that Jobtable has, and I really like the price point that it's offered at. So it's been a huge aid to the day-to-day administrivia of running a commercial construction project.
Really appreciate the feedback. No, there's no question about that. And that's great to hear. I know we were talking a bit offline, but I know you're on the job site. What kind of job are you working on right now?
Yeah, this one is a lot of fun, and it's my favorite type of project. It's a tenant build-out, so there's a lot of development where I'm at in Middle Tennessee, and a lot of new retail centers popping up. And this one is in between a steakhouse that's opening up next week across the road here, and a brand new Costco. So this is a 3-building complex. This building is a 3-tenant building. I got the middle 2 spaces to turn it into a pet food store. So the client is a local business owner. She's very established. She's got lots of subscribers, lots of loyal customers. This is going to be a relocate for her. She has intents to build multiples of these all over Middle Tennessee. Been working with this client for about 2.5 years with her and her broker. This is the 5th site we've looked at for her, and this one landed. So she signed the lease, and we got started right after the last big snowstorm. We got started. I mentioned it was a build out as a 12-week job, and where everything is just falling into place perfectly. We've been really blessed to have wonderful subcontractors and it's huge participation from the city, the inspections team. Just been going great. So we're going to finish about 3.5 weeks early for her, which is wonderful for her because great for me because it's a great story to tell, but wonderful for her because she'll be able to open before rent commencement, which is outstanding for a small business owner to be able to operate essentially, free without rent for several weeks and bringing in the revenue without the cost. So
Preston,
really excited for that.
I don't know how it is in Tennessee, but where we're from in Ontario, Canada, this is not a normal occurrence where projects are able to end as quickly as yours is compared to what the actual timeline was originally. So So kudos to you, and hopefully you can keep it up.
Yeah, yeah, it's been, like you said, we've been really blessed. Thank you for that compliment. It's just everything has just worked out great. All my subs have passed their inspections the first time, every one of them. We've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here they give you a green sticker and put it on the window. So we've had 7, 8 inspections, and they all passed. Um, the only one that didn't pass on the first attempt was my fire caulking on the demising wall, which I did myself with my helper over here. And we missed a spot, but he came back 2 hours later and passed us. So we passed the same day. So we built float into the schedule in case things happen, because if you don't, you end up compressing subs. And if you build a schedule that's too tight and then you have delays, everybody suffers all the way downstream. Because as you know, in construction, things are very linear and sequential, and you can move some things around, but some things have to wait for others. If you build a schedule that's too tight, you're just gonna be hurting all of your trades. That's one thing I learned in the corporate world, that because corporate wants to go fast, and if they don't see progress immediately, they think things are wrong, and they want to help you fix it by giving guidance that may not necessarily be conducive to good order and discipline. So that's what I love about being a business owner, is like I call all the shots, I set the schedule, I bring in the trades that I want, and I can build float into a schedule and then have the chance of delivering early as opposed to always being late.
And clearly, it seems like you have a good understanding for construction, because you wouldn't be able to execute the way you are if you didn't.
That's true. Yeah, I had some great. Learned from a lot of really great people, and I learned from being able to make mistakes on somebody else's dime too. I spent 11 years in corporate world, building restaurants and maintaining restaurants, and I saw a lot of good practices. I took those to heart, and I saw a lot of things that I just made a note to self: don't ever do it that way. And so I had a lot of good mentorship, and really too surrounded by a lot of good subcontractors. Learned a ton from just getting in the trenches with the teams and seeing and learning, and getting cold and wet with them when it's miserable outside, and it's helped me learn a lot. And I attribute my success to just surrounding yourself by people smarter and better than you. That's been my modus operandi my whole life. It's a good recipe for success. Just
what I've noticed a lot where we are in Toronto is that a big issue right now is because of how bad the economy is. You're seeing a lot of general contractors pivot from their staple, whether they're high-rise guys or commercial guys, they're going into different markets. And they think, I'm a big high-rise company. We've put up, dozens of buildings across the city. Now we're going to take on these massive warehouses. And they think that it's going to be a piece of cake, right? Because of their past experience. But they're quickly realizing that they're two completely different areas of work, right? So you're getting these large companies pivoting and moving, and it's not to say that they're bad generals. It's just that they're out of their element. They're doing things that they've never done before. And you could have all the best trades in the world. If your general is not organized and he does not know what the clear scope of work is and how to execute it, you're going to have a big problem, and your schedule is going to be affected, right? So again, having a software, having something that can actually mitigate some of these things, where you can kind of keep track of your stuff. And if you see that work is going to slow down, you can kind of catch it earlier on, and you can kind of disperse your crews to other jobs. Is crucial, because nowadays labor doesn't come cheap. And if you have guys standing around on a job site, it's going to cost you a lot of money. It's going to eat into your profit very quickly. So I don't know if you've noticed that people are kind of stepping outside of their niche markets to kind of explore other things, and how it's affecting them.
Well, it's a really good point, Charlie. And in fact, in my first 2 years, I stepped way out of my comfort zone, out of necessity. And took on a lot of residential projects that, at the end of the day, construction and remodeling, it's about putting widgets together in an orderly fashion. So although the widgets are all the same, the way they go together can be different in different types of construction, like you mentioned. So, but it's at the end of the day, it's assembly. So I ended up taking on a lot of assembly projects in residential world that I had never done myself before. I'd hired it out thousands of times, but I'd never done the work. But I did that because, not necessarily because of the economy, it's just my business was growing in the startup and I just didn't have the volume of commercial business, which is I'm more comfortable with. But yeah, and I certainly have made mistakes over time. You know, in the past 2.5 years, I think my biggest mistake, which I think is part of what you're getting at, is you know, people make business decisions and sometimes it's not the right one. I've made some mistakes. I think my biggest weakness has been in estimating, and I think the software like Jobtable can help me keep track of all my costs better and help me keep track of, you know, how long did it take. If I keep up with the notes feature in Jobtable, it'll help me keep track of like how many workers did I have in this trade, how long did this take, and then eventually be able to derive metrics like what's it cost me per linear foot to do framing, what's it cost me per sheet in certain scenarios to hang drywall and finish drywall. And the more I get into it, the more I stay in tune with the data that Jobtable is helping me keep track of, the better I become at my weakest link in the business, again, which is estimating. And that's been my biggest mistakes and failures in the last 2.5 years is estimating a job incorrectly. And that's where my margin has been eroded most severely, is when I underbid a job, and because I missed something, and that just either takes, you know, more time in the business and getting smarter at it, or better tools like Jobtable, or hiring, you know, subbing that part of it out.
Yeah, that's often the best way to learn, is through, you know, past mistakes, experiences. You got to take the good with the bad, and that's how you evolve and grow. So definitely, Preston, I want to. You have a very unique background, a lot of unique experiences and work experiences. I'm curious to hear from you, because you're touching on systems, and you know how tools like Jobtable benefit you and help your business. But I'm curious to hear, what systems did you bring from your corporate experience that transformed how you run your company today?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Costa. Two things that I've kind of took from corporate Army after 20 years as an officer, an engineer officer, and then 11 years in corporate restaurant world. Two things that seem to stand out with my business as compared to others. One is communication, which is super critical in this industry. But the thing is, not, as you guys know very well, not all tradesmen and not all business owners are good at communication, and it's a learned skill. You know, there's something to do with just natural personality and your God-given talents, but it's a learned skill, and it's something that I learned in the Army and then perfected in corporate world. I'm not saying I'm perfect, but I improved upon in my 11 years after the Army. And it's something that people mention all the time. So communication is super critical, and knowing how to talk to a client and knowing what to say and when to say it and how to make them feel like they're being taken care of and feel just comfortable and safe and not wondering about things. And knowing what to say and when to say it is super important in this business. You know, one of the dangers of working with clients is that they begin to wonder, and then they begin to get anxious, and then they start asking questions, and then it kind of snowballs. And by the time, and then sometimes you don't hear all this angst until like the next day or the next week, and then it all just comes out. You know, if you can get ahead of that, you learn your client really quickly and learn how to talk to them and learn how they communicate. That's super critical. So I learned that. Another thing is just organizational skills and working how to map out the life cycle of a project, whether it be a development pipeline, you know, from, you know, real estate through permitting, plan review, site, utilities, building, you know, ground up, et cetera, inspections, mapping all that out, or if it's a specific discrete project, which are a little bit less involved than, you know, jobs that have site work involved. Just what I learned in corporate was more of that, like the details of how to schedule a construction job. I did at Cracker Barrel, I did I was there for 8 years, and I spent the first 5 in facilities, and then inherited construction after my boss, the guy who hired me, retired. I stepped up and took over construction as well. That's where I began to really learn the details of construction. And then I went to Portillo's for 2.5 years. And Portillo's, like on day one, asked me to be the GC for a project, which I had never done before. I'd always dreamed about it. But I was the GC for the Joliet, Illinois Portillo's drive-through. And such an amazing experience, so fun. The guy that worked for me when I got there, he had 2 under construction that he was the GC for in 2 different states. He's like, Preston, I can't do 3 at the same time. I was surprised he could do 2, but he was a wizard at it.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that experience allowed me to have the confidence that, you know what, I can be a general contractor. So I ran out and got my license in Tennessee right away after that, just realizing, I don't know why I waited so long. Probably because I'd never done it before, and they've thrust me into that, you know. So I'm very grateful for all my experiences and what it's taught me.
Yeah.
Those are 2.
Just to be clear, you said you started this company in 2023. I just want to tell you that it's like, that is such a testament to how like life is full of surprises, and you really truly never stop learning. Because I started my business when I was 25 with my partner who was 22 at the time, and I was terrified at 25. Right. So I can only imagine, you know, you're a little bit older, and to start a business, I have to give kudos where kudos are due, man, because it takes a lot of balls, and, you know, at that stage in your life. And that's amazing that you were able to do that, and you're doing it so well. You're doing it with confidence, and you're succeeding at it. So I just want to give you some props for that. Definitely.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, there's a funny story about that and me getting some of that confidence. I was highly inspired by my wife, Sheila. We've been married going on 30 years in August. And she started a business in 2021. I'd always dreamed about it. So did she. And she started a business in 2021, and then in 2023, July, she opened up a brick and mortar. So it grew and grew and grew, brick and mortar. Now, since July 23, she's been in brick and mortar. Business is still growing, and it's retail. And brick and mortar retail is dead, right? Well, no, not here. When she needed to get it remodeled, I did what I always did. I bid it out to all these subs that I knew, and I gave her the price. She said, no, you don't understand. She looked at me, she said, Funkhauser, you're doing this, all of it. So I was like, yeah, but I'd never done a drop ceiling before. She's like, that's all right. I already called around. We got an appointment to go to the supply house this afternoon. I found where they sell it to you. We're just going to go down and get it, and then you're just going to figure it out. And I did, but I was highly inspired by my wife and best friend Sheila, and it spiraled from there. And I just got hooked.
That's amazing. I was going to ask, coming back to you know how you're describing the past experience with your on the corporate side, and now you're on both sides of it, right? But what did big companies get wrong about construction that the small guys actually do better?
There's an unhealthy obsession with going really, really fast. In my experience in the 2 corporations that I worked for, and it didn't lend itself to a orderly job site. You know, they were all about just this fanaticism with like, we've got to build a $7 million restaurant in 17 weeks, and you know, we've done it in the past. We did one in 12 weeks, and you should be able to do it in 17. And like, well, yeah, you can, but I've seen your job sites, and they're just a mess. And the trades are all on top of each other, and everybody's pulling overtime constantly. There's stuff going on the weekends. You know, I'm not a fan of stacking multiple trades. And there's times where it makes sense. Like in this 4,000 square foot building, the electrician can be over here running lights, and the plumber's over here, and there's 50 feet of separation between the 2 trades. That's okay. You know, I've had as many as 16 people in this building in one day, and everything was working well. Again, not every day's been perfect here. Don't get me wrong, but that's one thing that I think the corporations really get wrong. There's this fanaticism with got to get open, got to start generating that buck, but they're wasting money by going too fast. and my sample size is small, right? 2 companies, but that was the biggest frustration. And back then, I was drinking the Kool-Aid. I'm like, yeah, I gotta go fast, right? And I felt big about it and great and like successful, and I had this sense of pride because I was delivering what the bosses wanted. And then I began to realize this is really not a good way to run a construction business or a construction project or multiple construction.
Yeah.
Have you noticed?
Now, the other half of your question.
I'm curious to know your thoughts on this. If you've ever had to temper client expectations on scheduling, and the reason I'm asking that is because that's a huge issue that we deal with as contractors. We're kind of like at the bottom of the hill and the shit flows down, right? So we have these general contractors that get these insane schedule requests from the client. They don't make any sense, exactly like you were talking about. And rather than kind of tempering these expectations and giving them a dose of reality, they're kind of yes men and they appease them. And they kind of come back to us, the trades, and say, look, if you guys have to work weekends, we have to meet these deadlines. No matter what we do, we have to make it happen. And to your point, which was a great one, a lot of times these expectations are coming from people that are not in construction. They have an idea for something that they want built, and they have money for it, and they want it built in 9 months, whether it makes sense or not, right? Make it happen. Have you been in a situation where you've had to tell a client, like, listen, this is not going to happen. We're going to rework the schedule. This makes more sense. Or have you kind of appeased them and said, we'll work extra hard. We'll make it happen.
Yeah. And unfortunately, Charlie, I've been that guy who created all the pain, the bosses. I'm the construction guy at corporation, and the executive team expects a schedule, and despite the construction team's feedback that schedule you have asked us to accomplish is really unrealistic, we've had to push and push and push and push anyway. And it's one of the reasons I decided to separate myself from that world, because it was not enjoyable living in a world where expectations were unrealistic constantly. There's a saying that if it's been attributed to Albert Einstein, and I don't know if he really said it or not, that if you keep doing the same thing over and over and it never works, then after a couple of iterations of that's the definition of insanity. So what you're describing is a very frustrating place to be, and it feels a little bit insane when the leadership is demanding unrealistic schedules, and they're really just not listening to what I perceive as reality, or you perceive as reality, that you're just not achievable. We can't bend the laws of physics. We can't control the weather. We can't unsequence things that are required to be done in a linear fashion. There's some things you can do in construction to get creative with schedules, and there's some things you can do to buy back time, but there are scenarios where often in construction where you can't do one thing before the other. And if you find yourself having to wait for one step to occur, then, everything else that's dependent on that precedent has to wait. The more recent example of tempering a client's expectations, when I go into a residential project with a homeowner where I'm going to be in there for a long time, I sit down with the husband and wife in their living room with my schedule, and I talk them through. And the script is I'll keep it short, but the script is something along the lines of, this bathroom remodel is going to take me 4 weeks. But I want you to mentally prepare for a 5-week schedule because delays occur. And by week 4, you're going to be very frustrated with me. I'm going to have been in your house every day for 4 weeks, creating dust and noise and smells, and it's going to be uncomfortable. As good as a relationship we have right now, and as friendly we are, I'm going to begin to wear you out. And I just want you to be mentally prepared for that, so that at the end, you don't hate me, because I'm going to be your least favorite person in 4 weeks. And so prepare for 5, so that if the inevitable or if the unforeseen happens, which it can and it might, I just want you to be aware of that. So having some tradesmen or general contractors who have a high level of understanding of how their project is going to unfold, sharing a little bit of that up front with the client buys you a lot of grace later on if you're up front with them. You don't want to overshare and make them scared, or make it sound like you don't know what you're doing, or you don't want to be an alarmist. But it's helpful to precondition the client's understanding. It's not really what you asked about, Charlie. How do you talk somebody out of an unrealistic expectation?
No, but
sometimes you can't.
The point you just made was a good one. It's about being honest. And actually, like, I'll push back on my own point. I understand why general contractors do it. It's not because they're too afraid. Sometimes it is, they don't have the balls, but a lot of times it's because this client provides a lot of work, and they're going to provide even more work for the years to come. So I understand that they want to be the superstars that come in and say, look, you're asking me for this, I'm going to fucking make it happen. Whatever I have to do, we're going to make it happen. Now, my problem is with how they then go about executing. And that's where the lack of experience or the lack of respect or care comes into play. Because I've had general contractors that present a schedule which I think is impossible, but we actually get it done in time, because back to your original point, they're not stacking trades on trades. They understand how the flow of the construction site's going to work. So they understand, I got to get the plumbers in here Monday, Tuesday. The electricians can overlap by a day, so they're not eating each other's hair. The framers will be right behind them. So they understand how the construction works. And that I respect, because they're not necessarily going to throw you to the wolves. They're going to say, look, it's going to be crazy. We're going to work a little harder, but I'm going to make it as painless and seamless as possible, which I'm fine with, because I understand these clients are the ones that are paying the bills. These are the ones that are going to build the buildings. So we do have to keep them happy somewhat. So maybe it's a combination of tempering the expectations and execution in the right way. And even going back to the point that we were talking about before, the topic before, where people are stepping out of their element and they really don't know what they're doing. As an entrepreneur, and you as yourself, we've all stepped out of our element. You have to, as an entrepreneur, in order to grow. It's almost, me and my partner Johnny used to say, well, you have to fake it till you make it. But with that being said, I look at it in the same way that in the point I just made. We were asked to do medical gas piping when we were literally 4 months into business. We had never touched glass piping in our lives, right? The question was, have you guys done it? Can you guys handle it? And the answer was yes, yes, yes. But what did we do? We sought out co-workers that were union workers at other companies that all they did was medical gas piping. And he said, hey, we told them, are you willing to come? We'll pay you whatever your union wage is. Are you willing to take a week off of work and come help us out? And they did. And we learned exactly how they were doing things. We learned how to do it ourselves. And the point being is, we were faking it till we made it, but we still did it in the right way, where we delivered the product and we're able to grow from that. And the client was ecstatic with what we did. So I think, we can't just say like these clients are, assholes and they have these crazy expectations that are not possible. There's a balance of both, and you have to kind of dance on that line to make everyone happy.
Sure. And one of the things you said is really important, is that you got to treat your subs with respect. The people that you're working with, the people who are doing work for you, as a general, you're only as successful as your subs are. So, they're going to make or break you. So it's super important that you treat them with respect and dignity, and you are mindful of what the impact is to them when you're building schedules, when you're making decisions. And that's true in any industry, really. It's very important to me, and that's something I learned in the Army. You're only as successful as the team is. It's not an I thing, it's a we thing. And if you treat a job site like that, you do well.
Yeah, and honestly, there comes a point too where if you're just throwing your trades out to the wolves and you're just telling them, figure it out, we have to get this done over the weekend, and you're stacking 4 trades on top of each other, they're going to lose respect for you, and they're going to look at you as if you're a guy who has no idea what he's doing, and they're not going to want to work for you ever again. If you're getting prices from 3-4 companies, to get a competitive bid in, and now next thing you know, you're getting 3, then you're getting 2, and then now you're going out to look for prices from complete strangers because no one wants to work with you. That's a reality that can happen.
Something else too is like, when you make mistakes, not if, but and when you make mistakes. And I can tell plenty of stories even on this short job where I've made mistakes that have caused subs some grief. Case in point, Monday we were supposed to do trim plumbing. Plumbers get here, and the work that was supposed to be done over the weekend didn't get done. Walls weren't ready. Plumbers couldn't work Monday. So they came back today and finished. But, they didn't complain about it. A couple of jokes, lighthearted, hey, please make sure you're ready, kind of thing. But, it went well, and it was at 2:00 on Sunday. Everything looked like it was good. I left the job site, came back Monday morning, and they must have left right after I did. But it's when you make mistakes and you've got good subs and you've taken good care of them. This is a plumber I've been working with for 2 years now. They treat me really well. I treat them really well. And when things come up, they understand. They already know they can trust me, and they know I didn't do something.
Yeah. You mentioned your experience in the Army. So you have 14 years of military experience. I'm sure
20.
there's a lot of 20. I'm sure there's a lot of good qualities and learnings that you're applying today. I'm curious, what's the biggest leadership lesson from the Army that trade business owners need to hear?
Yeah, a lot of the leadership principles I've been discussing on the call already are things that I learned in the military. And I've learned from good leaders and bad leaders, and you pay attention to both, and you pick up on what's working and what's not good for the troops. At the core of it, if you treat the people around you, peers, leaders, people that were working for you, if you treat them with respect and you approach every problem-solving mission as if with the mindset that we need a team to be successful, as opposed to me being successful, then it goes a long way in helping everybody get kind of co-opted into the mission. So it's about treating people with respect. It's about enabling and empowering people to make decisions and think on their feet and not always have to check with the boss. It's about equipping them with the training and the tools and the environment that will allow them to be successful. It's about challenging people and asking them to step out. Last week I brought in a young budding tradesman who had never done some of the things he's done for me in this week and last week. He insulated the demising wall for me. He did the fire caulking, and I just asked him, "Are you willing?" He said, "Yes." I said, "Okay." I gave him the tools. Showed him how to operate the lift. I gave him all the materials. I kind of talked him through why we're doing what we're doing, and just cut him loose. Checked on him a few times, and he knocked it out of the park. It's just one super simple example of empower people, enable them, equip them, train them, and treat them with respect. As you can tell, to me, it's a lot about the people. So, part of our business is the relationship business, and that's just not just relationship with clients, but also with the people that do work for us.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. Do you find a difference between like in the military, where, and correct me if I'm wrong, but more of like a mission first military culture versus a customer first culture in small business?
Yeah, it's a good point. I'll quote Tom DiDamasso. He was fond of saying, and I worked for him in my last 6 years in the Army. He's fond of saying, mission first, people always. So yeah, we got to accomplish the mission, but we got to take care of the people, because without them, we can't accomplish the mission. So, and the Army had
they go hand in hand.
The Rangers. Yeah, the Rangers have a phrase, no man left behind. I'll never leave a fallen comrade on the field of battle. So yes, the mission's important, super critical. We don't exist not to accomplish missions. We don't exist to fail, but you don't want to leave a wake of bodies in the of your own bodies in the path of being successful. So you have to keep the troops in mind when you're doing anything. And that should be true for any business, whether it's construction or something else. And, the client business owner relationship, the client isn't always right. And sometimes clients will ask you to do stuff that you shouldn't. And the good thing about being a business owner is that we get to select who we do work for, and sometimes not every client is the right client for us. Charlie, I'm sure you've had to fire clients before. It's been in business as long as you have. There are clients that I've worked for that I will politely decline to work for again. And that's a blessing we have. It's a really critical aspect of why entrepreneurs go out on their own, is they have the ability to pick and choose what they do and who they do it for.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking on clients, right? We speak to a lot of contractors who are just starting out, or even experienced contractors who've been around a while. Now, it's depending on different markets. It's a slow period right now for a lot of, especially residential trades. So how did you get your first handful of clients when you were starting out?
That's a really great question. I love telling this story. So I started asking myself, who makes stuff or sells stuff that they don't install or assemble, or build? And I started looking around, and I don't remember exactly how I found it, but Home Depot has a program called the Pro Referral Network. And I tell everybody I meet that is in the similar line of work about this. You can set up a profile. They've got 30 or 40 hours worth of free training content on all the trades, and including how to run a business. And they've got this Pro Referral Network, which once you build a profile, you can turn on zip codes and cities and trades. There's about 70 or 80 different trades that you can turn on or off. And they send you leads for free, essentially. They charge you, I think, 40 points a lead, and you get $1. You get a point for every dollar you spend. So if you're spending $20,000, $30,000 a year at Home Depot anyway for your materials, then you've got more points than you could ever consume. And I was getting 10 leads a week. I was getting 10 leads a day when I had everything switched on. I've turned most of that off now, but it took really good care of me. And I was able to convert 14% to a job. So for every 100 leads I got, which is, just a week and a half worth of leads, I was getting 14 hired jobs for every 100 calls I make. And that's a super high conversion rate, I think, and especially for somebody just starting. And then I just focused on being really, really good, not perfect, but really good. I heard somebody say, I don't remember who it was, not excellent, not perfect, but excellent. So I try to do excellent work and take really good care of customers. And they started calling me back. I mean, in my first year, I had one lady who hired me to do 14 different projects for her at their house. And about once a year, they call me back to do something else. And it got to the point now where I've almost completely turned off that Home Depot thing. But it's great for somebody starting. It's almost, you pay for a background check, which is like, what, $30? And that's the only cost to get all these free leads. Now, for every lead I get,
that's a great, yeah.
And then I've never even heard of that, to be honest.
So I know you got Home Depots in Canada. Check it out. Yeah. Home Depot Pro Referral.
No, but I mean, for anyone listening, I think that's very valuable.
That's a no-brainer. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
And then, Lowe's has something similar.
You
but
have to
Lowe's
shut that off
with,
now, huh?
Yeah, I don't have time for it anymore. But I don't say no to my old customers. I think I have like 257 residential clients that have built up over that first 2 years. And I don't say no to them, but I'm not taking on a lot of new residential clients because I can't get to them in time. So most of those leads I just give away to friends now. It's just like, hey, call this guy. He's really good at what you just asked for. So,
and look, if you're no longer in need of that service, it just shows that you're good at what you do. I don't think if you've been in business for as many years as we have, if we were still relying on a service like that, I mean, it kind of speaks to the volume that you're not the best out there, because you shouldn't have to advertise after a certain amount of time. So if you're already at that point, it's been only 2-3 years, then you're definitely on the right track, right? And honestly, I think if you're a company that still uses services like that after a certain amount of time, you're not going to exist anymore, because after a while you're going to work strictly on referrals. Like it sounds like you're at that point now, right?
Yep.
But yeah,
Yeah,
but
which is fun,
anybody starting out, that is amazing.
I mean, it's super, super cool. I mean, I'm super blessed that Home Depot had that program. Lowe's has it too, but they partner with Angie's, and Angie's charges per lead. And I just decided early on, I'm just not going to mess with paying for leads. It's messy, because for every time I get a lead, there's, Charlie and Costa both also got that lead, and we're all three of us, maybe five of us, calling the same client. And, so it's, they're not, they were good quality leads, because the person whose information I got, just bought a storm door, and they want somebody to install a storm door. So that most of the leads were like that. So they're really good quality leads. So I recommend it. I tell everybody who's in business like me, like, hey, have you heard about this? Because it's the coolest thing ever.
Yeah, that's a really good tip. Preston, you mentioned Jobtable a couple times. You're obviously a client of Jobtable. What are some of your favorite, most useful sections in the app? Things that kind of save you time in your day.
As a general, cash flow is really important. I have two sets of tools. I have the tools that ride around in the back of this truck, and I have my checkbook. And without cash, I don't really exist. I used all the residential stuff. I did most of that myself. But as a general, I'm bringing skilled trades to the job site and putting them in a sequence that makes a job successful. But I need money to do that. Jobtable has a great feature that allows me to keep track of all my costs on the job, and it gives me some tabulation. And every time I know about a cost coming up, I know I'm going to have to pay this fire sprinkler guys next Wednesday for the job that they quoted for me, and that cost is scheduled to show up next Wednesday. And I already know how much this job's going to cost me from beginning to end, and I know when those are going to hit. So it's, in that way, it's been really helpful with cash flow planning. I know how much money to ask for my client, and then that translates really nicely into the invoicing feature, where I can invoice my client based on the work that I've done or about to finish, and tie it to each line item, which is, for me, my line items are the trades. So those features work really well together in Jobtable. And I've used some pretty sexy platforms. Like when I was at Portillo's, we used Procore. Procore is an amazing tool. It is so expensive. I don't think any small business owner could even come remotely close to affording what they charge for that. And there's so many bells and whistles in there you don't need. And I've used other platforms too that similarly have so much more capability, but for a small business, even if when I grow and have more projects going on and more people working for me, Jobtable will still be able to grow with me at a really affordable price. So there's more in the software that is cool that I use every day. I use the schedule. The quote system is very sleek, very professional. It lends credibility to the business when you send out professional looking quotes, which Jobtable allows for. It sends reminders out. It helps you not have to think of every little thing with the client interaction. So those are just a few.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the job costing, because over the last several weeks now, a lot of the education and communication we've been having with not only our clients but potential clients is specifically on job costing, and just how critical and important it is to just know your numbers and know how much you're actually profiting on a job, which most contractors just don't have that information. And so we're really like honing in on that as such a powerful, often overlooked tool that the software provides, which is extremely valuable.
Yeah. there's one cautionary tale in job costing. If you're syncing with QuickBooks, which I do, I sync with QuickBooks online, and then I have a bookkeeper who keeps all that straight. When I first started using job costing, I was creating a name in that first drop down in job costing. I was creating names like subcontractor - plumber and on and on and on. Well, I didn't realize that was creating a new chart of accounts in QuickBooks every single time. So all of a sudden, Jennifer's like, Preston, what are you doing? All of a sudden, you created all these new accounts in QuickBooks, and that's just so much more work for her team. So I went right back, and now everything at the drop-down level is, I only have 5 accounts in QuickBooks. It's materials, it's subcontractor, and 3 others I don't remember. That's her thing. Yeah. But so now that's the high-level menu item for me. It's those 5 accounts, and then in the field off to the right on my phone, I forget what it's called. That's where plumber, drywall, electrician. That's where that goes. So I didn't realize that at first.
Little quirks.
She
knows. So those are little quirks with QuickBooks.
Yeah.
That's good advice though, just to streamline the categories. Yeah. I like that. There's actually a lot of good updates coming specifically with job costing pretty soon. I don't know if you're using uploading receipts, but you're going to be able to just take a picture or upload your receipt, and it'll auto-populate all the sections as well, which will make it a bit easier.
That's cool. But it'd be cool if in the vendor field, after I enter Home Depot the first time, if that became a drop down, or I could just select from the list. I don't know if that's possible, but one day that might be a cool thing to add.
That's good advice as well, for sure. Awesome. Well,
that's
great to hear.
It's a great tool.
Amazing. Anything else we missed? Charlie, Preston?
No, I really appreciate it. Honestly, I have to ask you this. It's not necessarily construction related, but I always, whenever we have a military guy on, or I get the honor to speak with one, I just want to ask you, how is it just being out of the military for as long as you have, and with everything going on in the world now? Like, how do you feel as an ex-military guy? Like, do you ever get like anxious to like kind of get back out there, or do you like have your views on the military changed since you've been out?
A lot of good questions.
If you don't feel comfortable, I just have this curiosity, and I had to ask you.
Yeah, no, a lot of good questions. I love my 20 years in the Army. I had a great time. I don't miss it. I'm old and slow now. I don't run anymore. I'm not scaling any mountains. I move at a slower pace, and I'm well suited for what I'm doing now. I've loved my experiences, my 11 years in corporate America. But I love what I'm doing now. I'm not looking back. I had great time, did fun things, so many fun things, met so many great people. As far as current events, a friend of mine once told me, Joe Hardman, he was head of security at Cracker Barrel, loss prevention. He said there's 3 types of people in the world. There's wolves, there's sheep, and there's sheepdogs. The sheepdogs are the protectors of society, and then most of the people are sheep, and that's not an insult. That's just, they're just unaware of the wolves. Whereas the sheepdogs are hyper vigilant, hyper aware of the wolves. Well, the wolves have always been there. The sheep are learning more about it these days, and hearing more about it because of the proliferation of 24-hour news and social media and internet. You have instantaneous awareness of everything. Well, the world has never been a safe place, and it's never gonna be. That's the way God created it. So I don't get anxious about things like that, because I've always been aware of what's going on in the world, and it's going to be okay.
Well said.
That's a good one. True. Sheepdog, and wolf. That makes a lot of sense. Speaking on that, Preston, last question as well, just because touching on the as a veteran-owned business, which we see a lot of this in the U.S., obviously. In Canada, not at all. Just for other veterans out there that may be listening to this, are there any certifications or programs that veterans should know about for small business owners?
Great question. If you want to go after government contracts, there's lots of programs through the Small Business Administration. You just go to sba.gov and type in, there's 2 certifications that are great to have in case you want to compete for government contracts and government small business set-asides that specifically target veteran-owned small business, VOSB, and service-disabled veteran-owned small business. Those distinctions get you some bona fides that others don't have and can't get, just like women-owned business, just like minority-owned business. You get some of that preferential treatment for government contracts. If you're not in the government contracting world, I don't think it's useful, but it doesn't cost you anything but a whole lot of time and a whole lot of paperwork. You start off with sba.gov and get your vet cert, VETCERT, go through the vet cert process. Yeah. And every state in the U.S. has a Apex. In Tennessee, they call it Apex Accelerator. Apex Accelerator is free counseling. Your local small business administration office, SBA, your local small business administration has free counseling to get you through all that process. They don't do the work for you, but they talk you through the steps and help you stay on schedule with it. So other than that, I'm not aware of any, but I don't do government contracts, but I did that anyway, just because I had heard from other peers that it's important to get those certifications. So I did, but they're not benefiting me in any way. But like I said, it didn't cost me anything but time.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good to know. Appreciate you sharing that. All right. Well, look, Preston, really appreciate the time. This was really valuable. A lot of great insights. I'm sure a lot of people listening are going to get a ton of value. So thank you for taking the time. And for anyone listening who got this far, if you are looking to streamline and just optimize your day-to-day and be more organized in your workflow, check out jobtable.com. There's a 14-day free trial, and give it a go for your trades or construction business. Once again, Preston, really appreciate it, and we will definitely be in touch.
Preston, pleasure to meet you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for coming on.
Likewise.
Okay.
Of course.
Bye.